You're watching Breakthrough News.
Hi everyone, welcome to Breakthrough News on BTR today. Today I'm joined by Dane and Molly, BTR hosts of the Hash Dating podcast, and we're talking about two articles on BuzzFeed. One was advice from 24 women to their daughters, the hypothetical daughters in the future, right? And then the other one was 24 guys, a sort of follow-up article giving advice to their sons. And I thought it was very interesting to see the things that were coming up and the differences between the two. I don't know what your impressions were, but mine were that there were sort of two main buckets, and one was relationship angst, and then the other one was be yourself, and then there was a lot of overlap between the two. But that was quite interesting to see that there were those similarities.
Yeah, I mean, I think women especially, I guess a lot of their advice was very similar, but I think that those were things that girls still need to hear, or at least that maybe our generation needed to hear while we were growing up.
Yeah, because I mean, I took it as just things that we as a generation are thinking about right now. Obviously, this was not about actual parenting. This was about how do we think about ourselves. But let's talk about the women first. So most of them, so to me, there seemed to still be a lot of angst around dating. There was like, don't shed tears over dating, or like, even when your heart is broken, someone better will come along. There still seem to be. Do you feel like there is a lot of angst nowadays still around dating?
I feel like the advice was to not have as much angst. Like, it's sort of being like, there's the idea that girls worry about dating so much more than men, but all of this advice is pushing, these fictional or future daughters,
the non-existent daughters,
to not angst as much. And I think that it's sort of indicative of less angst in our generation with dating.
Okay. I thought the fact that so much of the advice was exactly sort of rejecting this angst, that was still subtly showing that we still had a lot of angst, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's definitely possible, and I also want to maybe trail off a little and say, I'm not sure that all of that advice about ignoring the angst is a good thing, because I personally don't see anything wrong with crying. By telling telling girls and for that matter boys, by telling them that they shouldn't cry, that it's a waste of energy to cry, it is going to make them feel more guilty when they can't help it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, no, like sometimes there is a place to cry, but then please move on.
Yeah, that's something that if we're gonna really talk about actual parenting, that's something that I wish that my parents would have told me. I have great parents, but they're a little bit into the tough love in a lot of ways. And it would have been great to hear that it's okay to cry over stuff, because I had to learn that on my own, and that's okay. I am a crier. I have no shame. Any movie, I'll cry.
Big compassion.
When people say nice things to me, I'll cry a little. I mean, I'm not like a sobber, but it doesn't take much to make me tear up. And I wish that someone had told me that was okay. So that's definitely something that I'm going to tell my children when I have children, be they sons or daughters. I think that's really, really important.
And it was nice to see on the guys' side, there were quite a lot which you didn't see. I mean, in a lot of these, I think, were sort of addressing gender stereotypes, perhaps, but on the guys, you saw like some guys holding up signs saying "be nice," and this like embrace of sentimentality, and like love openly, and sort of like what you were talking about.
It's really important.
Yeah. What also struck me was there were a couple, and this was actually more from the girls actually than the guys, but there was one that was saying, spread your wings and fly like an eagle. You can do anything you want and you're flawless, which was a very nice, inspiring, empowering message. But it just made me think, why are we actually so hung up on the need to feel like we can do anything, like, actually, is that a necessary thing?
Well, I think it's more of making sure girls from a young age establish a self-worth, because dating when you feel like you aren't good enough is not good for you.
Right.
So like, and I mean, girls and guys can both have self-esteem issues. And I think that, one thing that my mom especially tried to do was build up my self-esteem because she had problems with it. And I think that that's something that, you know, we'll still be struggling to build up our kids' self-esteem so that they can date and, you know, find relationships that they're worthy of.
That was something that I thought came through, was the girls' advice did seem to generally be addressing building up the self-esteem, as you're saying, whereas
Yeah.
the guys' advice had points like, you know, confidence will take you further than you think it will, you know, and be yourself and all that, addressing, you know, being your true self, but it didn't have this element of needing to build up the self-esteem as much.
I mean, if you ask me, when it comes to self-esteem and men, nobody wants to say that they don't have any, you know,
Right.
which is, I think, why you a lot of time you'll come across someone who's got a false sense of confidence, and it comes off as cocky and fake. When I think it's more important to instill quiet confidence. You don't have to be confident about everything, but you should be confident in things that you know about yourself. It's really important to know yourself. That's advice that I would give to anybody at any age. You need to know yourself. And for that matter, yeah, it's great to have self-esteem and it's great to establish self-worth especially for young girls. But I think it's a bad idea to tell people that they're flawless. When it comes to confidence, I think that's a bad thing.
It's like, no offense, but obviously you're not, like, no one is
nobody's
flawless.
perfect.
Like,
Nobody's
you know,
perfect.
like...
And, you know, if someone else is saying, well, I'm flawless, but, you know, you're listening to that and you know that you have flaws, is it going to make you feel worse or is it going to make you feel better?
Well, we may be like reading into flawless a little bit too much, but I feel like
I'm just saying, well, I'm just assuming it means
be
flawless.
Well, I mean, my instinctual reaction to that is that there are a lot of girls who, you know, they're quoting Beyonce.
Yeah.
And like they realize that they do have flaws, but like aiming to view yourself as like this, like at the best that you can be is like what you should be aiming to achieve. And like flawless sort of has taken on a bigger meaning, maybe. I don't know.
Like one's flaws are essentially meaningless, as opposed to,
or
you
I mean,
have no
you
flaws
can
but it's like the flaws don't matter, and in that sense.
Yeah, something like that.
Or something. Yeah.
I don't know. That's a lot. And I mean, that's also kind of taking the meaning of flawless and turning into the exact opposite of what it means.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
not that our generation has never done that. Has literally never done that.
We're gonna have to take a break. We are gonna break for a quick excerpt from the latest episode of Live Studio and BTR. We will be right back.
Cigarettes in poison movies no longer mean nothing to me when you get so old. Cuts both ways across. Sounds of black and clouds.
We are back with Dane and Molly talking about advice that you would give to your hypothetical kids, but really just stuff that we've all worked out about ourselves, I guess. One thing that I actually was confused by, one of the guys' pieces of advice, was know that you are actually on a date first. What did that mean?
That's referring to like a lot of like, I guess, hookup culture or like hanging out. Does hanging out mean you're dating? Does it mean like going on a date? Does it mean...
So he's saying establish that this is an official date.
Yes.
Oh, before you're just like out at the movies and you think it's a date?
Yeah,
right.
And the other person is like, this isn't a date, we're just hanging out as friends.
If the conversation even comes up.
Yeah,
which is probably, I mean, that's like a step.
You could
as
probably
opposed to a sort of weird like, oh, that was fun, bye,
You could probably get through an entire date and not know it was a date.
I guess by that standard, make sure that you both know that you're in a relationship.
What about the idea of platonic dates? Because I think I think it would be weird to sort of officially, if you ask someone out, going either way, you want to go see a movie, get a drink, whatever, and it's clearly just you two. I think it's fair to assume that is, if you're not already friends, that is like a date, but then the idea of it being a date doesn't have to come with
The word
all
date.
the expectations of like hooking up or whatever, you know? Like, why couldn't it just, yes, it is a date. Like, people go on tons of dates all the time, and like it stays platonic, and then sometimes it isn't platonic, you know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is old-fashioned, but a date is sort of an audition for, you know, whether you do want to pursue a relationship. And if you don't want to pursue a relationship after a date, nothing's gonna happen on the date.
Or maybe you just want to take it really slowly,
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, there's that too.
Dane, how do you feel about making sure that it's a date?
I mean, God, I don't know. It's been so long since I went on a date.
You have a girlfriend.
Yeah. They're not really, that's not dates. That's like, yo, let's get some dinner.
Okay. So it's not a date if you're in the it's not a date if you're in the relationship already.
I mean, well, some people call it date night, but like, I don't know. We don't.
Yeah. Okay.
It's dinner. I don't know. Like, I mean,
It's not a date if you're not in a relationship necessarily. And then when you're definitely in a relationship, it's not a date because you're obviously in a relationship. So it's the sort of weird audition phase.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, okay, so here, back to your original question. I mean, the thing about dating, I've said this on the hash a million times, I have a lot of female friends. So, girlfriend aside, if I were to be like, hey, let's get some drinks, most of my friends would assume that, like, yeah, I mean, as friends. Otherwise, if you're already good friends or friends at all, you should make sure that your friend knows that you mean as something more than friends, especially if you're already friends.
But how do you do that? So I mean, it's funny, this conversation has like really focused in on this very specific topic, but how do you make that totally clear without it being weird?
I mean, it really depends. I
Like,
think
hey,
you have to
do you want to
feel-
get dinner romantically?
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, I mean, you know, you
Ew.
can't just spring that on someone if you guys are just friends. I mean, if you ask me, it really should be a progression. I mean, if there's chemistry and you both know there's chemistry, you should probably talk about it. It's really healthy to talk about it. If you're the only one who's feeling something, and right, well, I don't. It's so confusing. I mean, you know, it's like you don't have to
Dane,
use
tell
the,
me
you
the
don't have to use
answer.
the words. I mean, what are you supposed to do? One day you're like, oh man, you know, I really like this girl. Am I supposed to text her and be like, hey, we have chemistry. Do you want to get dinner as a date? Like,
Right,
not
that sounds
necessarily.
horrible.
That kind of communication is a little bit too blatant.
Although probably it works for some.
It may. I really think it's a situation by situation instance. I mean, you really, if there's chemistry and you guys are going to go on a date, it should really be like you both are aware that there's chemistry, you know?
Okay.
And I mean, you kind of, it's not crazy to say something like, can I take you out to dinner? Because by saying that, it's like, by asking if I can take you out, it means I'm going to pay, which means
That's true.
we're not
That's
just
a good.
friends.
That's a good way to subtly distinguish.
Right.
Is to indicate that you will
Right.
be paying for dinner, which is always nice, not necessary, but you know.
Well, that's why I say it that way. I mean, if you're gonna go on a date and you don't want to say it that way because you don't want to make it seem like you are insisting on paying, that's a different story. But that's different. And you also should make sure that it's not like for their birthday or something, because then they're gonna think you're just getting them a gift. Like, hey, let me take you out for dinner for your birthday. Like, that's like, thanks. That's a nice birthday gift. That's very different than just a random Tuesday. Can I take you out to dinner?
Cool. Molly, do you have anything to add to that? Well, then we will probably wrap it up there. We'll be right back in a moment after this bonus edition on BTR breakthroughradio.com. Thanks very much, Dane and Molly, for joining me today.
My heart aches more than my back hurts. You know I buy you diamond rings and things. Maybe if I could, but if all you want is me, and all we need is each other. You know we got it so good, they call them hard times. Hard times, yeah. Hard times, hard times, hard times, yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Be sure to check out breakthroughradio.com for our continued Stuffed Week coverage, including an article on how Thanksgiving is celebrated abroad. That's it for us here at Breakthrough News. Tell us what's breaking through your world on Twitter @BreakthroughRadio. I'm Charlotte Hohenstein, and thank you for joining us.